Hey friends, you know that moment when you're gearing up for a weekend birdwatching trip or a sunrise hike and you stare at the shelf of binoculars and wonder whether the next thing you spend your money on will actually make a difference? I've been there more times than I can count, and every time I hesitate I imagine turning that pricey box upside down only to find it's a bit too heavy, or the view is a little hazy when the light drops. The good news is, after checking a handful of forums and digging through a few long-form reviews, I think I've found a pair that might actually bridge that gap between nice to have and essential gear. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's talk about the Zeiss 10x56 Conquest HD binoculars, complete with the Lotutec protective coating in a sleek black finish. At first glance they look like a classic pair of high-power optics, but the real story starts once you pop them out of the case and start using them in real conditions. The big selling point that keeps popping up in discussions is the 90% light transmission paired with Zeiss's 10x coating. In plain English, that means more of the scene in front of you actually reaches your eyes, which translates into brighter images even when the sky is overcast or the canopy is dense. For anyone who spends evenings on the trail or watches wildlife at dusk, that extra light can be the difference between spotting a shy deer and watching it disappear into the shadows. Now, who should actually consider these binoculars? If you're an avid birdwatcher who needs a high magnification, wide-field instrument that can handle everything from bright midday skies to the low-light mist of early spring, these are worth a look. The 10x magnification gives you enough reach to see fine details on a bird's plumage, while the 56mm objective lens gathers enough light to keep the image bright. The compact and robust design is another point in their favor. These aren't the massive, tower-like binoculars you see on museum displays. You can clip them to a backpack, and the Lotutec coating adds an extra layer of protection against scratches and water, which is a real peace-of-mind factor if you're hiking through damp underbrush. On the flip side, you might want to skip them if you're primarily after a lightweight, pocket-sized pair for casual strolls. At 10x56, they sit in a middle ground where the size is noticeable enough that they won't fit comfortably in a slim jacket pocket, and the weight, while reasonable for the aperture, isn't exactly featherlight. If you're more of a casual viewer who prefers a 8x42 or even a 7x35 for ultralight travel, you might find these a bit too much to carry around. Additionally, for astronomers who need extremely high magnification and are willing to set up a tripod, the 10x power may feel limiting compared to dedicated spotting scopes. Let's break down the practical strengths that actually matter when you're out in the field. First, the optics. Because Zeiss has a reputation for high-quality glass, the combination of 90% light transmission and the 10x coating means you'll notice a clearer, more color-accurate image straight away. I've read users mention that the sky takes on a deeper blue hue and foliage looks more vibrant, which reduces eye strain on long observation sessions. That clear view in any weather claim isn't just marketing fluff. It really helps when the sun is behind a thin cloud layer or when humidity is creeping in, because the coating reduces glare and internal reflections. Second, the ergonomics. The optimized operating elements mean the focus knob turns smoothly and holds its position without slipping, even when you've got gloves on. That's a big deal for anyone who's had to fiddle with a focus ring that slides around after a few minutes of use. The binoculars also feature a rubber-covered main body that grips well, so you aren't constantly readjusting your hold while tracking a moving bird. In practice, that translates to more consistent tracking and less wasted time readjusting the view. A less obvious, but still important, advantage is how these binoculars handle low-light situations. Because the objective lens is relatively large, 56mm, they gather more photons, and combined with the high light transmission you can actually start to see decent detail at twilight, which is when many of the most interesting wildlife activities happen. Some reviewers have pointed out that they're comfortable enough to use with a small tripod for stable viewing, though Zeiss doesn't market them as a tripod-ready instrument. If you're comfortable adding a simple 3-leg stand, you can extend your observation periods without the shaking that handholding inevitably brings. Now let's address the weaknesses. The biggest trade-off is that the high magnification can make it harder to locate objects in the first place. If you're scanning a wide field, say, a meadow with scattered birds, 10x magnification will narrow your field of view, meaning you'll have to move the binoculars more frequently to cover the same area you'd see with an 8x scope. That can get tiring.